It is late at night, and our heroes are ready to leave the tavern with new information about the missing bodies at the graveyard. At the graveyard, they meet Frank, the gravedigger, who tells them they should leave right now before midnight, and he will talk to them in the morning. But it is too late. The dead are awake, and the fight begins.
Hello there, I'm Will Brugger, and welcome to my YouTube channel. I just got an idea for my campaign. I wanted a graveyard to accomplish Terran and the adventure for my players. So let's see how I built that. I 3D printed a ton of models from the graveyard, from Loot Studios and my mini factory. I cut up this piece of 10mm foam, 12 by 9 inches, so it will match my dungeon tile system. Laying out the grid. Then I used my jig from my dungeon tile set to measure up the holes for the magnets. I actually ended up not installing magnets. And then I started to assemble the fence and found out that the epoxy resin shrunk. And I tried to expand it with a file, but it didn't work. So I headed out to my drill press. And that worked. A quick assembly, just to see if everything will fit. I started to brainstorm and trying to figure out my layout for the interior of the graveyard. And here I wanted it a crypt. That was one thing I knew from the start, that there should be a crypt on the graveyard. And here I can put in a coffin or trapdoor and let the adventure move on. I drew up some plans. They were not strict. I could away from them, but it was just more so I had an idea of how I wanted it to function. Then I cut up some 5mm foam for lifting up the terrain, so there was room to build a grave that was actually functioning, where I could put in skeletons, bodies, and coffins, maybe even a treasure. I cut all the way through so I could use the full depth of the grave. To cover the hole on the backside, I used this black crafting paper. I was going to put it all over the backside just to make it neat. Then we need some cover for the grave. And I actually needed the same type of cover for all the graves. Some of them will be removable and some of them will not. I made some more terrain. And then I created 2 more graves that was able to open. And now for some glue. Some finishing touches, and all the grave tops were glued in. And then it was time to assemble the fence. I used some UV epoxy to glue it together. I also use that for my minis. And now it's time to build the crypt. I made a foundation. It is in two parts, a 3mm and a 5mm plate. Carved a brick pattern in the foundation and glued it in. And now it was time to make a ton of bricks. I'm saving all my scrap material just to use it for bricks. I was giving it some structure with some tin foil. And then I used some carved granite and shaped it. And now it was time to put in 1,000,000 bricks. Actually, I felt it like that. Well, it took about an hour to build this crypt. I made some more crafting paper to make an arch. And now to make some roof tiles. I made a template and glued it in with a glue stick. And then I used my Roxxon wire cutter to cut everything out. Slicing it up in a 1mm strip and gluing it together in layers. And then you have a nice roof. I wanted to install some magnets, so I used a 3mm drill. And to mark it up, I put a tiny drop of paint on the top of the magnet and pressed it down. Now I could see where the holes were going to be for the top magnets, and I used the same drill too. I put in some hot glue and the magnets was in. I cut up some 3mm foam because I didn't want to use magnets for the graves that could be opened. This was day 1 of my 2-day build. I spent 8 hours. I started to get the roof ready after it was dry, early in the morning, cutting it up and fitting it onto the crypt. Now we needed some shingles on top of the roof. I used some crafting paper to make a nice, I don't know what's called, backbone of the roof. And then I glued everything together. I used a lot of glue just to tighten everything together, and then I painted it black inside. I used some drywall filler to make some smooth transitions between the gaps in the foam, and then I used a modeling tool to make some more details in the tiles. And now it's time for Black Magic Mod Podge. This is white Mod Podge mixed up with some water and black paint, and that's it. It gives a very good surface and then it primes. And again, thank you for Black Magic Craft for sharing this recipe. I airbrushed all the 3D printed parts just with a black primer. Then I use some thick mud from Vallejo. And I sprinkled the top with some grass and stones and all this texture to give it texture. I painted the tiles with a very dark gray. I dry brushed with a lighter gray on the crypt. I painted the roof with a copper color from Army Painter. And then I used this Citadel Technical Ninlac Oxide, very hard to pronounce. And it gives this awesome effect of old copper. And I glued in a symbol of a flower and lights and all that stuff. Just to give some extra to the crypt. And now I use some Nuln oil all over the building, except for the roof. Then I used some earth colors. It was dark brown, some sienna and tan mixed up to paint the tiles. I also used bright gray for the stones on the fence. And then I sprinkled some pigment color on the ground. I also put on some leaves. And then I used a light brush to spread out all the parts. And then I used some more of this oxide technical color from Citadel on top of the metal parts of the fence. And this was day 2 for me. I only spent 6 hours. And that was it. I was done. I must say, for a 2-day job, I think I'm pretty proud of what I accomplished. Yes, this was actually a pretty fast build. It took me 2 days to make this, and I was so excited about it, and I thought it was a bit too small. So I actually built an expansion. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.